Rick and Crystal with the Rick and Crystal Show.
Hello everybody, this is Rick. Sitting out with a beautiful fire on a nice May night, right? I just have some thoughts I wanted to share. See if you guys feel the same way. Remember that song by Pink Floyd, Comfortably Numb? I kind of feel like that now. You know, you go through life and there's so many regrets and pains and situations you have to deal with, relationships and jobs and work. You know, sometimes you wonder what the point is. You grow and mature, and then you still see people and they still think you're the same old person you were in high school or whatever, right? Sometimes there's an emptiness in life. You just feel empty and you want to be filled up. Like me, I'm a Christian. I know that comes with a lot of baggage, but how about this? I believe in God, the Creator. I believe He created everything. I believe Christ is the Messiah. I go to church and I pray not as much as I should. And I don't read my Bible as much as I should, but I do read it. I love listening to those commentaries from pastors when they go take a book from the Bible and they go verse by verse and they explain it. I really like that. You learn a lot. I feel I'm a lot more smarter at 62 than I ever was at 22, you know. I think a lot of guys will share my thoughts. I wish I was 42 again, my body, because, you know, over the years it just falls apart. But that's aging, you know, that's good. But I don't know, you know, sometimes you just feel alone in the world, but I think we all are all alone. You know, they say when you die, you're surrounded by friends and family if you're lucky, but you still die alone. You know, you're the one that's leaving, not them. Like me, I'm 62. I know it's young. I know that, but I feel a lot different than I did when I was 50, and I feel a lot different when I was 40. You know, I remember turning 40. You know, I'm still working 6 days a week, raising kids, you know, full of energy, looking forward to my Friday nights to drink Corona, you know. I've been sober for 11 years now. The only thing I do is nicotine. I smoke an e-cigarette, which is bad because I got emphysema and COPD and arthritis. But it's a hell of an addiction, man. You know, I mean, these bodies of ours, they get addicted to everything, don't they? Food, sex, you know, nicotine, alcohol, drugs, everything you can think of, we get addicted to. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, someday we're going to be in another world, you know. I always wonder what I'll think, how I'll feel. But I watched some videos on YouTube. I watch YouTube every day on my TV, you know, big screen TV, and I watched some people the other day, and this one woman came on there. She had a channel. She called herself a loser about 100 times, you know. She said she was a loser because she hadn't lost her virginity. She's a loser because she hadn't gone past high school education, et cetera, you know. And it is something, isn't it? I mean, in this world we live in. My wife and I always think, like one of our favorite movies we got is Pleasantville, you know. And what a little treat, isn't it? They're transported back to this 1950s town, you know, minus the technology we have, minus the drugs and everything, you know. I mean, the, you know, prescription drugs. You know, there's a lot of drugs that came out with now that are helping people and saving lives that they didn't have, you know, 70 years ago. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, you know, just being honest, like a guy like me, you know, men were men, women were women, you know. I grew up in that environment, you know, in a small town. Women wore dresses, most of them. I mean, you know, the older ladies, and some ladies even wore those gloves. And my grandma always wore one of those scarves over her head. You can kind of see through, but they were colored, you know. And the men were men, you know. I mean, they just were. And now, what are these people, these kids supposed to think, you know? I mean, what is a man? What is a woman, you know? What are they supposed to think? Where's their role models, you know? Like my role models, when my parents broke up when I was 16, my role models were the older guys I worked with. They taught me how to do everything, you know? When you don't have a father figure, other guys step in to do the job. You know, so I think it was about a year living in the big city, I learned to smoke cigarettes, smoke pot, and drink alcohol. You know, they just, you know, and you learn it from the wrong people. I don't know what the answer is. You know, right now I just feel numb. You know, I don't feel overjoyed. I don't feel depressed like it's the end of the world. You know, I don't know, somewhere in the middle. You know, my wife came home and brought me a wonderful meal. She went out for Mother's Day dinner with her son and brought me home a wonderful meal of Whopper and fries and a Coke. You know, so good. I really don't know, you know. I know we're supposed to have a moral code in this world, and that is biblical. That comes from God, obviously. You know, our morality. And you just, all you see, you know, when you look at any online stuff or the news, you see violence and just people, you know, you wonder why they treat other people the way they do. The pain and suffering that goes on, the wars, everything, you know, all the crime. It just makes you wonder, you know. Like a follower like me, you know, the book tells us it's going to get worse before the end comes, you know. It's just going to get worse, you know. And you imagine, how can it get worse than this? But I saw some videos on YouTube of some of these guys. They had cancer, you know, and they would talk about how their prognosis is going and their treatment, and then you see, you know, their final videos, and then after that you see like their wife does a video tearfully, you know, saying that they passed. And it is true, isn't it? We're here like a smoke and then we're gone. In the grand scheme of eternity, you know, what's 60 or 70 or 80 years, you know, it's a drop in the ocean. But I don't have the answers. I got a lot of questions. That's the one thing about getting older. You realize no matter how much you know or have learned or how many books you've read or lectures or speeches, there's a lot you don't know, you know. There's just so much we don't know. I haven't got it figured out. You guys get it figured out, let me know, you know. I don't know, it's a beautiful night. Sunday night, Mother's Day. Most of my family's passed away. I've got two cousins, you know. You know, the mother of my sons passed away 16 years ago. My mom passed away 8 years ago. I think my dad passed away maybe 20 years ago or 18 years ago. You know. Now, the guy that got my mom pregnant, I never met him. He ran off when she was pregnant. You know, I had a stepdad. Never met the guy. You know, and for people like me, I know there's other people besides myself. You know, you kind of take it personally. You're like, wow, this guy didn't even want to meet you, you know. You weren't good enough for him to ever contact. Ever, you know. I can't imagine leaving one of my sons. You may have those times where you don't talk to people for a while, or you get in a disagreement. Like one of my sons, we disagree politically, but I love him, you know. I'm not out to harangue him or argue with him, but he takes it personally, you know. You know, it is a beautiful world, you know, except for the people, right? Yeah, people can be horrible. They really can. You can be having a good time, you know, out shopping and pass some people and they just give you a look like they'd rather beat you or run you over with a car. I mean, it's hard to understand people, you know. So much hate. Like me, I live in the city here, and, you know, we live in an integrated neighborhood, you know. There's whites like me, there's blacks, there's Hispanic, you know, all kinds of people. And as you can hear, it's a quiet neighborhood, you know. Either retired or working. But like me, I've worked over 40 years of my life, you know, and you just wonder, you know. Money goes in one hand, it goes out the other for bills and food and school uniforms and school lunches and doctors and dentists, and, you know, it's just crazy. Well, that's about all I wanted to say, you know. Hope everybody has a good Mother's Day. I just kind of feel lost right now, you know. Trying to figure out the rest of my life, you know. It's a good life. Don't get me wrong. My home, my wife, kids are all grown. Get the dogs, plenty to eat, you know. You know, life's pretty good, but just trying to figure stuff out. I got to go get that little stick that's on fire out of my Doberman's mouth. I love these dogs, but they're such idiots. Have a good Mother's Day. Talk to you guys tomorrow.